Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and by paying my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome everyone to the City Lifestyle Committee meeting, and I declare this meeting open at 9 a.m. I'd like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded, and I believe we've got a full house today, so there's no apologies to be received.
Sorry, Councillor Bradley's not present at the moment.
Oh, pardon me. As far as I know, Councillor Bradley's coming in. She will be. She's just running a little bit late. Thank you. Sorry, my apologies. I hadn't received anything from her. Councillors, I now refer your attention to declarations of conflicts of interest. Do any councillors wish to declare any conflicts of interest against this morning's report? There being none, I will now refer to the report on today's agenda. Councillors, we've just got the one report today, and that report is item 5.1, the Logan North Aquatic Centre proposed splash pad. Through the Director, Mr Brad White, I'd now like to hand over to our Sports and Community Infrastructure Manager, Mr Ben O'Bree, to present his report. Good morning, Ben.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Mr Mayor, and good morning, councillors. The report before you today seeks council approval to allocate the remaining funding from the renewal of the Logan North Pool, now named the Jodie Henry Pool, project to a new splash pad and change rooms that includes a changing places facility to replace the ageing assets that are nearing end of life at this facility. The reason why this report, for the timing of the report, is that in November 2021, a memo was approved by the then Director of Community Services to include a splash pad into the scope of works as associated works under the service enhancement, subject to funds being available within the project budget. From that point, a concept design was progressed for the splash pad, as you've seen in the report papers, and accommodations were made within the new pump room to accommodate a future splash pad or play space to replace the current one. After completion of the Jodie Henry Pool renewal project in October 2022, the team financially reconciled the project to double check or determine the actual remaining funds in the project, and also to go out and receive further indicative pricing given the changes we've seen in these market conditions over the last 12 to 24 months in the construction sector. In recent consultation with the Director and the CEO and governance and finance managers, it was deemed appropriate that we bring back this report to Council to seek a resolution around the splash pad and change rooms being deemed associated works to the service enhancement and for the consideration of the allocation of these savings to these works to replace these assets that are nearing end of life. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, councillors. I have a question from Councillor Heremiah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions around this project, but I'd like to preface by saying I support the idea of having a splash pad in this area, and especially a splash pad that's available to the public and preferably free. I think that would be really great for the community. My concerns lie not with the exact project, but with the process associated with this project. So I'd like to just get my understanding of it straight. There was a service enhancement that was approved back in the 2020 to 2021 budget process. It was $9 million for a scope of works. That scope of works has been completed. We've come back with a $2.2 million spare cash there, and the purpose of this report is to expand the scope of that original project to now include a splash pad. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Heremiah, and largely, yes, that is correct. The scope within the service enhancement was quite prescriptive, being the pool renewal, the pump room and associated works to support that. Again, in consultation with the Director and the CEO, yes, it was deemed that new change rooms and a replacement for the splash pad probably wasn't consistent with the intent of the service enhancement at the time. So that is the process. Now, the reason why we're seeking council endorsement for the replacement of the change room and the splash pad is because these assets need replacement. They're not operating well. The change rooms currently at the pool do leak. There are shell considerations with the current play pool, and the existing pump room that serviced that kids' play area is not quite operational at the moment. So these works do need to happen in the near future. This was an opportunity, but not the only opportunity. So the process that you've identified, though, is correct in regards to the scope of works and the budget.
Thank you for that. And when it comes to a new project scope for other sorts of projects, for example, if I was to advocate for a brand new splash pad in my electorate, the general process would be to work through the well set out budget process where we have an idea, it goes through committee or through SLT, different budget processes are available, but at the end of the day, it ends up with a service enhancement. And we can compare these projects with all the other projects in the city during our budget workshops and understand what will be the impact of approving this service enhancement over different service enhancements. So instead of approving budgets in isolation, like this report, we can compare all the different service enhancements across the city and understand what will be the impact of approving this versus that. And that enables us to compare the pros and cons and have a budget process as a whole rather than isolated budgets. Would there be an avenue available to consider this increase in project scope as a service enhancement throughout the budget process?
Yes, potentially. Under the banner of these are ageing assets and they need to be replaced. So through a service enhancement, if we were to propose that, we'd be seeking the business case for why they need replacement, what's the impact if we don't replace the assets, and then seeking an appropriate funding source, if not this, then another funding source in the very near future from council. The clarification for myself is that the splash pad, just want to differentiate this splash pad from the previous splash pads we have out at Logan Gardens and out at Flagstone. This is, from our perspective, seeking to replace the current play pool that's already in that pool area, and to agree with your comment earlier, a lot of our pool facility design now from a contemporary space, we look at splash pad areas complementing program pools and 50-metre pools as the more of a contemporary way of providing those facilities to the community.
Thank you for that. And I think completing a project scope under budget is something that should be celebrated. And I'd like to acknowledge your team's work in that. Now that we're increasing the scope, I think that it would be more appropriate to consider this increase in project scope as a service enhancement where it follows the process just like any other project in the city would have to follow. I think that would be a better way of approving this funding, and it would enable us to dig a bit deeper. For example, I've read through the report and I can't find any information on if this project's increase in scope was approved. Would there be an impact on the ongoing operational cost of maintaining the splash pad? I can't seem to find any information on ongoing recurrent costs. Do we have any visibility or predictions on the impact of approving this project on ongoing costs?
Not at this time. The reason being is the previous kids' play area had a pump room that had to operate that facility, so there were operating costs attached to that play pool, that pump room, and then providing lifeguards to support that area. There will be operating costs for the new splash pad, absolutely. As a guide, I think the current splash pads at Logan North, and I don't think this would be a smaller version of that in regards to area, that operates at about $130,000 a year from memory when in my previous life in parks. Now this splash pad would have reduced hours to match the operating hours of the pool and on-off switches. Plus, given it's inside the Logan North facility, for lack of a term, there's potential that it increases the revenue at that site as an extra offering for people utilising those pool facilities. So there's a few variables that we're not across at this time, but we can provide that information to you outside of this, and if we've given some time to do some research and crunch some numbers.
Thank you for that. And I'm not sure if the sentiment in the room is there, but I think having that information in a service enhancement, just like any other project would have to have, I think is a good way to go about it. In terms of ongoing costs as well, I understand that if this project is approved, that loan facility would be drawn down by about $2.2 million. Do we have an understanding of what are the expected annual repayments if that $2.2 million is drawn down?
Yes, so the loan term, as I understand it, is over 20 years. So the approximate repayments would be $44,000 per quarter, which would equate to $176,000 per year.
And that $176,000 per year is a loan repayment, which I understand couldn't be funded out of the local infrastructure program. That would be funded out of a different bucket in our budget.
I probably need to defer to the finance manager to clarify which funding source funds loan repayments. But my understanding from all capital programs is within the capital budgets for each branch, so for the sport and community infrastructure branch, there is a funding source where we provide interest payments for loan funds.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate those answers, and that really concludes my remarks today, Madam Chair. I think that I have concerns about the process associated with this project, because I feel like it may be perceived that it's getting to cut through the normal other budget process, like a service enhancement that other projects have to go through. And at the same time, we don't have the benefits that a service enhancement would offer, such as having more visibility on the ongoing costs. We're aware that that even just the loan repayments alone could be more than $170,000 a year, combined with the other maintenance and different water bills that will come with it. So for me to vote on it, I would really want to have that information. I'm in support of the principle of this project. I'm not in support of this specific report, because I think it should be in a service enhancement rather than an isolated report. Those are my thoughts, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I really appreciate the rigour with which you've gone through the report, Councillor Heremai. They're great questions. Thank you. Moving on to Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report. I think it's fantastic. You're under budget via a QTC loan. My recollection of the service enhancement and having discussions at the pool and with you all through the whole process was that you needed to see basically at the end how much funding was remaining to see whether or not you could actually fund the splash pad, or part of the fundings was to go to the splash pad. Was that correct?
Partially correct. So from the period of time when the then Director of Community Services approved the memo, then yes, that was the position in regards to that authority to include the splash pad as associated works into this project, and it was going to be subject to funding being available. So yes, from that perspective. However, just to go back to Councillor Heremai's previous remarks, the splash pad wasn't in the original, well, the Director and I and the CEO don't deem it to be in the original scope of works, because the service enhancement wasn't quite prescriptive around the splash pad, it just said associated works. But from the time the then Director of Community Services signed that memo to endorse or approve for the splash pad to be considered as part of associated works, then that was the operating theory thereafter, in waiting to see if there was sufficient funds to fund the splash pad to replace the kids' play area that's there now.
Okay. That's basically how I recollect it, that we wanted to wait and see, and it's terrific that you were under budget and now you can partially fund this, which I think is a wonderful part of the whole redevelopment of the site. Whilst it would be terrific, I think, to make it free of charge, I don't think it's practical. It's a 50-metre pool, which you need to have a lifeguard, you need to have the staff there to maintain it. With the one that's in Yarrabilba, the one that's in Flagstone and the Logan Gardens, there's no lifeguard there. The parents are there on site watching these kids. It'd be terrific if we could fence it off, but I don't think it's practical. It would make the site look terrible and all the rest of it to try and make it free of charge. I think pretty much all the other pools that I know of all have this, and they use it as a draw card to get the families in, which I think would be beneficial for this redevelopment of the site as well. I know that I've spoken to the coaches there. I think it's terrific if we can upgrade all of the toilet facilities. They are quite dangerous when you've got like hundreds of kids in there swimming. Even for parents walking in there, it's a slip and trip hazard. So I think it would be beneficial for everyone to get that upgraded as well. So for me, I would love to support this. The only question that I really do have is with the project costs and then the estimated costs that's on page 4, there's $110,000 difference. And I think, if I'm reading this correctly, It's a 3.4 million proposed budget, but the estimated costs are 3.3. So you've got like 110 contingency in there. Is that how I'm reading those two tables?
That's correct, Councillor Wilcox.
So if it again goes under budget, which would be fantastic, where does the 110,000 go with the funds if they remain after the completion of it?
Any funds remaining would be, because of the bulk of this project is loan funding, would be returned to finance or not drawn down on, so returned back to the organisation.
Okay, lovely. I'm in support of this. I think it would be a wonderful addition to the whole centre. It's a draw card. It's actually working really well. They had 7 swimmers from the club there compete at nationals last week, and they did really, really well. So it's quite an achievement for them to get back in the pool so quickly and do so well. So I'm really excited. If this gets through, I'm really excited to see this come through and for it to be a draw card for the City of Logan, because yeah, the old splash pool that we have is quite outdated. So this would be really exciting.
Thank you. Councillors, just so you know, I've got a number of questions and I'm going to take my opportunity as Chair to actually ask something of Ben first up. But just so you know, the order is Councillor Lane, Councillor Stemp, Councillor Fraser, Councillor Bradley, then the Mayor. Ben, at the moment, we've actually got the existing splash pads unable to be used. Is that right? But there is an existing splash pad there?
There's an existing, and I'll try and mix up the terminology, kids play pool area, sort of 1/2 metre depth. So we had ongoing operational problems with the previous plant room that supported that play area pool. Also, there are structural concerns around the walls of the shell of that pool area. It would take some work to get that back up and operational. It could be operational, but it would take work to get that operational and then potentially ongoing maintenance to sustain its use for the remaining time that it has.
How long has that been closed to the public now?
It was closed since the Logan North pool was closed.
And there's scrim up around that site. What's on the scrim?
The scrim on the temporary fencing around the site is a picture of the splash pad picture in the papers that you see. Again, that is up there because at the time it was deemed it was going to be included into the scope of works, subject to funding being available. And certainly when we were opening the pool, it wasn't going to be a great visual look if we had temporary fencing. We needed the scrim to basically, one, potentially show off the splash pad, but two, hide the unoperable asset in behind that temporary fencing.
So potentially there's a community expectation that this is, you probably can't answer this, but just judging by, if we've got scrim up there, I would think that demonstrates an intention to do the works at some point.
My opinion would be, for those who have attended the site will have seen that scrim and yes, would have a fair thought about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me, councillors. Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair, through you. When I first saw this, I thought, not a chance. Not a chance. You don't replace a kids' wading pool where they learn to paddle and swim and put their head underwater for something that they jump on and water splashes on them. We have childhood drownings on a regular basis in Queensland, and removing a pool in favour of a splash pad in a where you pay to go goes against everything that I think I believe in. I think pools are vital and essential. We have splash pads in Flagstone, in Yarra Bilba and in Logan Central, and the reason for those is they're non-drowning facilities. Junior pools or toddlers pools are very important. At Logan, at Gould Adams Pool, we've got a toddler pool, and it allows children and parents to put their faces underneath the water and get used to doing that. I think it's really important. I don't know that a splash pad is the best option, but given we've already promoted it, given that someone decided outside of the actual process of decision making in this, who had the authority to do it, obviously, we've gone ahead and promoted it. So in my mind, I feel a little bit perturbed by it, but I did speak to the divisional councillor, even though it's a citywide asset, and her assurance that she was actually putting, or with the approval of officers, allocating local infrastructure program funds towards improving other parts of the area I thought, all right, I'll give it my support. But I will say I'm really disappointed that it is a splash pad and not a toddler pool. It looks very pretty, and I hope it works out really well, but I believe in pools. Pools should be in pools, and splash areas should be for the public to use, using ratepayer funds, and they should be out in gardens and in community places where people who can't afford to go to the pool can actually access them as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stemp.
Madam Chair, my questions have been addressed, so good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is about something along the lines of what Councillor Hiromaya was talking about. So are there any recent examples of where surplus funds have been redirected to new projects, as in a new scope in a vicinity? And I was wondering if it was supported by councils in committee, if any such examples do exist.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Fraser. And if you'll indulge me for somewhat of a technical answer, variations are issued to projects quite regularly under recurrent capital programs where they're deemed aligned or associated to that works. So that happens through typical contract management practices quite regularly, so long as they're deemed to be consistent with that intention of that scope of works, but variations are additions to the works technically. And the recurrent capital programs are very much there. So i.e. the Sports Facilities Program is a funding program for sports facilities with that intent, so any additional works has to align with the intent of that funding source. This is quite a different scenario because the works were funded by the QTC loan outside of a recurrent capital program, so it's a one-off funding source. And that's where, in consultation with the director, when we've identified that the service enhancement was the put the framework or the parameters around the scope, which was the pool, the pump room, and associated works. So it's not attached to an intent of a recurrent program. So because of its QTC loan funding, I don't have on hand, my apologies, examples to share with you on that, because I'm not aware of too many examples where a project's been funded by a QTC loan with a tight constraint around the original scope. I hope that helps. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Bradley.
Yeehaw, thank you, through the chair. My comments come from a different lens than everyone else in this room, from personal experience over 20 years, being a gym member at that pool area, no longer since COVID. Even though a lot of constituents are asking me to come back, I still have not come back. All my children learnt to swim there in the indoor pool where a lot of kids learn how to swim. And also seeing what I saw at the opening of the new pool facility. Also, the pool used to be in Division 1 up until 2020. And when I first started as a councillor, it was actually leased out. And what a nightmare was that. I had complaints of faeces in the pool, of the temperature of the pool being substandard, people getting migraines and headaches and whatever infections from the pool, etc. So it came back to council to manage, and ever since council has managed it, it has been amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's a great asset for a city. It's a draw card for many people outside of the city to come to the city. We've had major events there where triathlon, I can't think what it was called, Weet-Bix triathlon event there. We've had major swimming carnivals there. It has been a major showcase for the city. I have seen that pool being utilised when you're up in the gym looking down. That whole pool area is utilised by families all over the city. And if you go in the pool, you hear the conversations. It's like a litmus of our city. There are so many different cultures within that pool when you're there. So it is well and truly utilised by many, many people. I've also had complaints over the years of the change rooms. the temperature of the water, they're all old. And, the staff do the best they can with what is there. So I am 100% supportive of this. It's not in Division 1 anymore, but a lot of people from the area I represent utilise the pool. There was one time actually we had a big major petition going to stop the pool being leased out again. So the community love this asset, and I'm happy to move it when the time comes.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley, and I'll come back to you on that. I wanted to allow the area councillor to actually have closing remarks, so that is noted. Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just got something here. The art of politics is not a court of law. So there is flexibility in this establishment, and that flexibility is built around the fact that things do happen and you have to cover those situations appropriately. And I say this because, and I understand this is not in the capital of Logan for pools, this is outside of the Bentley area, but what I can say is that we established some time ago that it was important when we have facilities like this that we acknowledge the fact that we have visitors come from other cities. And in this case, this is our only 50-metre pool. So you have swimming championships there. You invite people from all around the state, from Gold Coast to Brisbane, to compete. You have schools, John Paul College and that, we've got kids, sorry, not John Paul College, they don't use that pool, but every other every other school. And they invite, obviously, they have kids from other parts of southeast Queensland into those schools. So this is a showcase swimming pool for Logan. Obviously, when we established the major funding, it was to build an Olympic-sized pool so that that sort of activity could continue. I wish you'd told me that you weren't going to, you thought my theory of that was irrelevant in that we didn't really care, because it's about finishing off. It's about completing something.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, I'm sorry, could you just clarify your last remark? I just don't understand what you mean.
Sorry, Madam Chair?
Could you just clarify your last remark? I didn't really understand what you mean. What didn't
Well,
care
initially when I spoke about improving sporting facilities, I spoke about doing it to a grade that people felt proud to be in the city, that when people come and visit, as you know, away teams and other competitors come from outside Logan, they see these facilities, and I wish I established that right early in from the part when we first got in, that this was an important part of going forward in the city. I wish you'd have said, no, we're not going to do that, because I probably would have said, well, why, spend all the money on all the other facilities? You've got to finish off. This is about finishing off. I don't want to go down to our premium 50-metre pool in the city and see a construction fence sitting there for any longer than what it is now. And considering all the other spending that we've done in the city, I think this is a pretty high priority, considering what else is in the mix. It's come to an end of life. We've got an opportunity here. We've got the money. The money could have well been spent on the existing facility. Luckily, the officers have done a great job. Luckily, they've signed off on it. Thank you for the report. I'll be certainly moving to push this forward, because I believe that we need to have something of importance in the city so people can be proud of, and I think this needs to be finished off. And I wouldn't do this to any other councillor. E.g., I think I voted for the Bentley 50-metre pool, and that's going to have a splash pad. So I think it's only fair, this is the city's oldest pool, to have a splash pad so it finishes it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I'd just like to make a comment. I'd really like to commend the officers for bringing this back to council. This did represent an opportunity where there was an under-budget spend, And Councillor Jeremiah's questions, I think, are very valid, and I'm pleased that we're able to have this debate in this area. One thing I would say, Mr Mayor, is that since this was endorsed originally, we've actually developed a program-based budget for all our sport and rec facilities, and hopefully projects like this won't fall through the cracks moving forward. I'd just like to give the area council the opportunity to close out today, but before we do, I just note that the area council is supportive of the divisional local infrastructure program budget, also contributing to this project, I believe, to the tune of $470,000. So just in case anyone missed that in the report. Councillor Russell.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I've just listening to the questions and the remarks from around the table today. Thank you. They've been really excellent questions and comments and raising points that are in the report, just to bring that to everybody's attention. Essentially, just to summarise, I guess this is about need in the community. We know that we do have an incredible new asset, like the new pool in the area, and as the Mayor said, it is about finishing this off, because as now the divisional councillor, I'm receiving questions all the time about, you know, when is the change room going to be fixed up, and, you know, when can we expect some more places for younger children to play in the site. So I think this is a very exciting project ahead. So yeah, I think this is about replacing failing assets, and we've got a funding opportunity, which is something that financially we all voted on about 3 years ago. So this is not about adding finances to a project at this point. It was saved money, which is great. And again, yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, for raising that. That I will be supporting the project with some local infrastructure funding as well, because I think it is a really important asset, and it's not necessarily a Division 3 asset. I think this is I'd say citywide, but really it's like this end of the citywide. But yeah, there are, you know, four or five divisions that will all be very excited about this. Also, the longer that we hold off on projects like this, the costs go up. Like, I know as councillors, we're all aware, it's like every time something gets held off on, the cost goes up, and each time we go back to it, it's like, oh, we need a little bit more money, because all of the costs of infrastructure just keeps going up. Unfortunately, the project is, the due date, which is expected by the community, is slipping away as it is. So I think it's really important that we are able to move ahead on this project. And yes, with that, is it SCRIM? I'm actually not familiar with that term, but yeah, with the SCRIM around there, it has built a lot of excitement in the community, a lot of expectation in the community, and also a lot of conversation about when to expect that. So the sooner that we can deliver this to the community, the better it is. So thank you. I just wanted to, thank you all so much for the questions. And Councillor Jeremiah, the questions that you raised, they're really great questions, but I'm just really hoping that the issues that you've raised don't hold back this really great project.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, I'm actually going to test the floor. Now, I understand we have an amended motion going up on the board, so if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment, councillors, to read the addition of point 2. Okay, councillors, when you've had an opportunity to read. We're moving from the current budget year to the next budget year, so it's effectively rolling it forward because we can't actually produce the results in that time frame. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben. I'm not the writer of the report. You are, so please.
As always, you are correct, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Well played.
The intent is, yes, the works, subject to council's consideration today, the works would be undertaken largely in the next financial year. So we're wanting to move that money from this year to next year to match when we're likely to spend the funds. As Councillor Raven suggested, technically re-provisioning the money into the year that we'll spend it.
And forgive me for the frivolity, but you actually did receive advice from Finance Branch with regard to that. Thank you. Okay, the motion is up on the board. I have a mover with the Divisional Councillor, Councillor Russell. I have a seconder from a former Divisional Councillor, which is, of course, Councillor Bradley. Can I see by a show of hands support for that motion? Thank you, councillors. That's been supported with the exception of Councillor Heremiah. Councillor Heremiah, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, councillors, that brings us to the end of today's reports. Do we have any general business for the Manager of the Sport and Community Infrastructure Department in Council? Thank you, Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much through you, Madam Chair. So I'm really excited to be talking pools this morning, and I'm hoping you can have an update for me on the Gould Adams pool, where the base of the pool is falling apart under people's feet. Do we have an estimated time of delivery for the renewal of that pool at all?
Don't have an update for you at hand, but I'm happy to take it offline with you, Councillor Lane, and come back to you in the coming couple of days if that suits, and organise a meeting with you to discuss.
Yeah,
we
that'd be
are currently
great.
talking with the lessee.
That'd be great. I know I've raised it on a couple of occasions, but I just thought I'd ask for a formal one given we're talking pools today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any other general business for the manager? I haven't finished, Councillor. Thank you, Ben. Ben, do you have any general business for us?
Not today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for the report. Okay, councillors, that actually brings us to the end of the City Lifestyle Committee meeting today. I note not all managers are able to be present today, so do we have any questions for the Director? Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your rightness in making me wait a moment. I appreciate it very much. Brad, I've got a question around how the digital team manages, and I'm sure you'll take it offline, but I know that I will forget it if I don't bring it up now because it just came to my attention yesterday. So the digital team put a great post up about trees, about the second oldest tree in the city, which is in Councillor Bannon's electorate, as he's just stepped out. And I've seen this happen a few times, which is why I raise it now. I've asked questions in the past and gotten various answers, so there's never much clarity around it. This one is one where we did a media release on it.
Councillor Raven, can I just interrupt you? Very happy, and I'm sure Brad will take this on board, but I think the director you're referring to is Kim.
Oh, so it goes in Kim now. Sorry, my bad. So, lucky you, Brad. Good dodge.
But I'm sure that we can filter that question, or are you happy to take that offline with Kim, or how would you like to manage that? Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. No worries. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much for you, Madam Chair. Mr Mayor, Councillor Raven and I were down at the Imagination Festival for the kick-off the other day, and it was amazing. The staff were fantastic, the stalls were wonderful, everything about it activated that space beautifully, and I just wanted to give a big thank you to the events team and the KBF team because they did a magical, wonderful event the other day, and I'm so proud that it was, hosted in our city and that people were coming from everywhere to attend it. So a big thank you to that team.
I was there too, and they did a great job, and I think that they exceeded their numbers on the day, which was tremendous. Do we have any other general business for the Director? Brad, do you have any GB for us?
No, the only GB item I had was stolen by Councillor Lane. I just wanted to thank the team as well. So, no, appreciate that. I'd prefer it came from you, but yes, they did an amazing job. We had over 5,000 patrons, and one fun fact is the free train travel is our highest numbers using that, which is absolutely fantastic, which was the whole design of the site. So, yes, it was an awesome event.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Well, that concludes the agenda for today. I declare the City Lifestyle Committee meeting of the 19th of April concluded at 9:39 a.m. and we'll see you all back here for City Governance in 10 minutes. Thanks, everyone.